Let's just rub the hands and place them on the dantian to start with. We have to be careful when we meditate that our stillness doesn't become a stiffness. So what we tend to do is try to physically conform to a mental model. So we have an idea in our heads of how we should be when we meditate, and we try to conform to that, which produces a rigidity. So one way you can keep it from getting stiff is just to have slight movement in the head. So your dantian is the part of your body that's most still. But the head, being the furthest from the dantian, has this sense of wanting to sway. And this movement in the head it's like a childlike curiosity, inquisitiveness. And then what we want to feel is the part of the spine beneath the Ming Men. So your sacrum, tail, and the bottom lumbar vertebra or two. So as my head is swaying, I want the feeling that my tail is doing the same thing. The tip of my tail is trying to wriggle a little bit side to side. What I would like is the movement of my head to be a mirror of the movement of the tail. So my tail is really the active part, and my head is just following its lead. So as my tail is trying to point in this direction, my head is leaning in that direction. And then you can get it swinging backwards and forwards. So just letting the tail release back a little bit, and that will swing the head back, and then getting the tail to come under. So we want to sit in such a way that there is freedom of mobility in the tail. So the cushion can't afford to be too soft. Maybe one of those cushions for people with sciatica, you know, where there's a groove where your tail is, so that the tail can really reach down and not be inhibited at all. And then just bringing the hands up to the heart, and now reaching. As I reach out with my right hand, my head is tipping over to the left, and my tail is sort of pointing into this sitting bone. Try and keep part of your mind, your concentrating, pulling together mind in the Dantian. And now the same thing, but reaching forwards. Try and keep that freedom in the tail. Now let's rub the hands again. And then place them on the dantian again. And now let's try a little bit of that breathing through the small hole. So particularly the in-breath. So if I'm trying to really suck air through a tiny hole in my mouth, then it will just contract this dantian region. So it's a sense that the effort to pull the diaphragm down to get the breath to come in starts in the dantian. My dantian tugs at the diaphragm so that air can come in. That's the feeling. So I suck into the small hole. And then I breathe out through the small hole. So when you suck in through the small hole, it's pulling what's above the dantian down into it, but it's also pulling what's under the dantian. So your lower diaphragm, if you like, your sort of pelvic floor, is pulling that up into the dantian. So a sense of your perineum tightening and the sphincters tightening. So I breathe in. And I breathe out. Now just rubbing the knees a little, just to prepare ourselves to stand. So coming to the dantian, so just make fists with each hand, one over the dantian, one over the mingmen. So the dantian is the place where your energy is wanting to condense into, and the mind as well. And the mingmen is the structural center of the body, the middle of your skeleton, if you like. What's beneath the mingmen is your lower body, and what's above it is the upper body. And then just feeling the two parts of the spine. From my Ming Men, the spine drops down. And I want the tip of the tail to just wake up and move. And the upper spine rises up into the top of the head, and I want this point to feel that it's moving, almost like a little stalk with an eye on it has come out. Or you can think of the thymus or the third eye. Keep the feeling here, this sort of tight togetherness that's in this region. But then now take your hands away and just bring the arms up into ward off. And just feel the strain that that puts on your lower back. This is quite difficult. So now my lumbar spine has had to become strong to support the weight of the arms sticking out in front of me. But I want that strength to be very local. It hasn't cramped the tail. If anything, it introduces more freedom into the tail because I'm holding on more here. So it's like my tail has a root, which is here, which enables it to sway around like it's attached to a rock, like a frond of seaweed. And now let's move the tail and the head with the breathing exercise. So now sense that this is very much the center, and what's underneath it curls under, and what's above it curls over, and then it reverses. To start with, it's easiest just to get the head moving with the breathing. But what we would like is for the head to simply be following the tail's lead. So it's my tail that's reaching back, and then it's my tail that pulls under. And my head is just mirroring. We're loath to move the head. Really let it go, especially back. I want this to be very much like a back bend of yoga. Now let's tip to the sides. Again, my tail pointing in the same direction as my head. Now let's come back to the Danshan Ming Meng region. And then the arms seem to ward off again. And now feeling gravity, feeling this flow down through the body. That is our relaxation. Our relaxation is really becoming aware of gravity as a downward flow of energy. And then just really relax the feet and this whole area in order to feel what must be happening, which is a flowing up the body from the ground. So a plant has roots to give it support and attachment to the ground, but also to receive water and nutrients to stop it from wilting and dying. It's the same with us. We're standing here secure, but there's a sense that something in me is reaching down in order to draw up something from the ground, which stops me from wilting, it stops me from drooping and becoming depressed. And just try and feel these 2 points, the tip of the tail and this point on the head. Like there's something in there that's wanting to reach. My tail is wanting to reach down. My head is wanting to reach up, like an intelligence. And then bring the hands back to this region. Just to really just give us a real feeling for the Dantian Min Meng. And now just turning. Using my legs to turn my hips. My shoulders aren't moving. My arms aren't moving. My back leg is straightening to push me past the front, and then it bends to pull me back to the front. And then the other leg straightens, and then that one bends. Feel the activity in the legs. They're never doing the same thing, and it's that that effectuates the turn. As one leg straightens, it forces the other leg to really receive me. Feel the leg that's being loaded, the leg you're turning towards. So this is how the Dantian should feel. Like it's a spring that's ready to recoil. It's really under a lot of pressure. And then it was a simple matter of just getting it to release. So one leg springs straight and the other one springs bent. So both legs have to be active. But one's actively straightening and one is actively bending. And then just letting the arms go and allowing the energy, the effort in the legs to start coming up into the upper body. Without leading with your shoulders. So this leg here is really loading and then it's pushing into this arm. I want to feel everything that I do physically springing from the ground. The temptation all the time is to bring it into the upper body, to give the legs a bit of a rest. And in a way, that sums up civilization. The worst thing for a civilized person is labor, manual work, peasant work. This is what we're trying to get back into. And now let's bring it back. And now the hands facing forwards. And now just turn again from the legs and the hips, not the shoulders. In Tai Chi, the arms aren't meant to move. It's the whole body that moves from the ground. And now making the circle. So we have to bend the legs in order to come back. Try and get maximum turn and maximum bent legs. This is really difficult. People hate this. Largely because it wakes them up. Try not to incline the spine. If I want to get the hands down here, I have to squat. And the parts that you'd rather not do or rather rush over, just delay. Go slowly. But when we get into the crouch, just be really careful that your knees don't collapse in. You have to really push them apart here. And that's difficult because it's the last thing that they want to do. And then changing direction. And then winding it down. And then back to the Danshin. And just really clench the fists. That's the feeling of the Danshin. Like if you relaxed it too much, you'd just dissipate. Backwards and forwards, full and empty. Filling from the ground. As I bring my weight into the foot, the strength, which I feel as a flow, a rising flow, comes up. So all the forces, just trying to relax those to the point where they become energy. John always used to say, force is just too much energy. So I'm just relaxing, 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 right at that point where if I was to relax anymore, the system would fail. That's the point of maximum energy, surprisingly. So the system can fail because it's too relaxed, and it can also fail because it's too tense. We want to know both extremes, really. And to have an ease of mobility between them. So our movements are always smooth. And then really straightening the straightening leg. And then you feel the power of the bend when that straightening relaxes. When you find yourself really getting into it, just every now and then, just bring yourself back to the dantian. The trouble is when we get into something, it tends to come up into the upper body, starts getting fancy. Really want to struggle to keep it in the legs. We are simply peasant laborers with no ideas above our station. We're content to remain deeply in the earth. And if you can, try and feel the hamstring. I straighten the leg here, largely to activate the hamstring, to stretch my hamstring taut, and then I can just kick a little bit of energy into that and it will start bending the leg. Hamstrings and the tail. They're the two things that aren't normally talked about in Tai Chi, and they're difficult. You're constantly having to revisit them simply to get any handle on them whatsoever. Our hamstrings take us closer to the ground, and our tail wakens an animal spirit. And now let's change the legs. And the same thing, let's start off just doing the same thing. Bringing energy up from the ground as I bring my weight into that foot. And then as you bring the energy up the leg with the hand, so this hand is pulling the energy up, I then direct it with the same hand into the opposite hand. So I've got a connection now, an energetic flow from my front foot into my back hand. And then I just drop this one down. And as I move back, I draw the energy up the back leg and direct it into the front arm. For the flow to be clear, I really have to be relaxed across the sacrum, so that the energy coming up the leg can come up the spine. I want to use the leg in such a way that the hamstring and the quad are bound up in this sort of tussling tautness, a taut tension. Very much like judo. I mean, if ever you allow a judo expert to grip you by the lapels or by the arms, you literally cannot move, because their body is just preventing any movement in any direction, because their whole body is tense. We want an element of that. So it's not a real intensity. My hamstring kicks in, but the quad doesn't really want to let go. So there's a fight going on all the time in the muscles of my body. Especially in the legs and the danshen, the lower back region. If I get it there, then the upper body can just be completely loose, and the legs will just fling everything around. Bring it back to riding horse. Tai Chi, on a physical level, it can be reduced to pull and push. So I'm pulling in order to push. Most clearly seen when I push with the opposite hand, but it can also be pulling in order to return and push. So in order to pull, something towards me, I first of all have to reach out to connect to it. And then I tense the biceps, the muscles that bend the arm and the leg, so the hamstring and the bicep, and that will pull the thing towards me. And then the other hand can push away. This is the basic action of Tai Chi on a physical level. So let's just try. So I extend the arm and then I just contract. And I want to feel that contraction. I'm not just mechanically tensing a muscle. Something in me is really drawing into here. So I reach out and suck into the dantian. I reach out and draw down into the dantian. So I'm expanding, but only in order to draw back. I'm expanding and that sucks me back in. And now let's just try the same thing, but with just the one hand. So I really expand, reach out, grab something, pull it in towards me. And then I sink even more deeply into that leg to stimulate the return, the spring out of that. And then I spring out of that. That's my attack. And then I continue that to reach forwards. And that's the beginning of the pull. And then I tighten to pull. And now I really sink into the leg to load the spring so I can return. And then I really reach in order to grab, and then I pull in, sink into the leg and spring out, reach forwards, pull in, sink into the leg and spring, reach. And let's try a little bit with the other hand. I reach and I contract. I really load the spring, crush myself down, so I've got no choice but to spring out of that and return the energy. Okay, then back to here. So now we just want to turn that pull into a yield. So instead of grabbing the person and pulling them towards me, I do what John called make them an offer they can't refuse. So I open up a space that they want to enter. So let's just move from leg to leg. So I sink into this foot and this reaches out. So what is it that starts the yield? in a sense, it's really me reaching behind the person. So instead of reaching forwards to grab an arm and yank them towards me, I'm subtle. So I reach behind them and then I push their back towards me. That's the sense. It's quite interesting. If you're working with someone and they're trying to grab you and pull you, it's quite easy to deal with because you can feel it. But if they actually push your back, you just can't resist it. You just fall. It's the last thing you expect, partly. So I sink down, I reach out, and I become round, so that I can have a sense that this hand is coming behind in order to push them towards me. So I'm not really pulling. I'm reaching, and then I turn the waist. And it's that turning towards them that actually rounds me. So turning towards the person it's like your way of greeting and beckoning them in. So I reach, that requires me to turn away from them. And then I just roll towards them, and that will round the arm. So this is yielding. So this is the energetic component of the physical, the muscular. There's a real quality of seduction. Just imagine you're reaching out, grabbing someone, and just drawing them in for a kiss, but you want it to be their idea, or want them to think that it's their idea, to feel as though it's that they want to do it, they want to engage. If I'm in any way greedy or rough, then they will draw away from that intimacy. If you want intimacy, you really have to soften and refine. The other day I was in the shop and there's a woman with a baby, a toddler, in pushchair, and the toddler looked particularly bored and grumpy. So I just caught its eye and just smiled. And you know what it's like when they don't really want to engage, but they can't help themselves. And so eventually her mouth started smiling, and then she started squirming because she wanted to engage, but she didn't. So there's this beautiful sort of light conflict going on. And it meant that, you know, she was constantly doing this turning away and just showering me with energy. So very, very natural. Animals do it the same. The cats around here. So whenever I pass a cat here, I'll always say hello. And they know they're being addressed. And some of them are haughty and they'll just pretend they haven't seen you. But others will sort of, they may squirm a bit and then issue a meow. But they say hello back. As soon as you approach them, they run away. All the time, there's this sense here, a holding on here so that my lower spine can just relax down and my tail can sway. Because a lot of that sort of coy play that goes on in the head is actually coming from your tail. So to yield, I reach forwards and then I make a space. So that space needs a boundary. That's my container. That's my ward off. And I have to empty that space of me so that it can accommodate the other person. And I need to make it really inviting. So I need to soften. So this is the internal aspect of Tai Chi. And now let's bring it back to riding horse and just feeling this area here. The sense that your legs come up and connect to this point. They don't. They join through the hips to the sacrum, but I want the feeling of real freedom in the part of my spine beneath this point. My tail must be able to whip around. And now let's just squat down. I want to go down with power. So I'm actively going down. I'm not just relaxing my muscles so that gravity can pull me down. I'm tensing my hamstrings. Both hamstrings are tensing in order to pull my body down. And then I just want to feel the point where I have to just relax to go down any further. I can't keep that going all the way unless I come off my heels. So I pull the ground with the toes, that's tightening the hamstrings. And then I get down. How far down can I go? And then I just relax and sink into a squat. Something in your lower body must open up in order to get this close to the ground. Bringing some weight forwards. Feel that supporting strength coming into your arms. And then just straighten the leg. Do a little bit of close groundwork every day, I think, is essential. And you'll be surprised how much it opens the groin area and enables you to sink a little bit deeper in your Tai Chi. As your Tai Chi improves, it gets deeper. So remember Chen Manqing and Dr. Chi, when they used to practice together, Dr. Chi said, front thigh parallel to the ground. So sunk. And he said, before they reached the first crossing hands, they'd both be screaming in agony. And then moving across. And now just feet behind. And now just bringing up a foot and trying to dip down with your sacrum to get the stretch in the back thigh and the front hip. And swapping round. And then the foot back and into the cobra with your feet flat rather than on the toes. Then back. Now just reaching forwards with the hands, pushing backwards with your sacrum, and then coming off the heels, drag the hands along the ground and then up into prayer posture. And then push your heels back as you lean the head forwards. Hands go down and reach forwards. And then off the heels, hands in. And then just straightening the legs to come up. And now let's try figure of 8. It's waving hands in the clouds. The hand that's come around, that comes in, is going through this point into the ground through this foot, and that enables the other hand a bit of freedom to reach up. Make sure your upper body doesn't get too fancy, otherwise it will draw you out of the legs. Now let's just try brass sparrow's tail and feel how it's all pull and push. So from ward off right. So roll back, press and push. So pull and push. So I'm going to reach forwards with my left hand and I'm going to pull with the left hand and then I'm going to push with the right. And then the right hand extends a bit more and the right hand pulls and I push or press. And then the left hand extends and I pull as I go back and then push with the right. And then I extend the right, pull myself forwards and push with the left. And now single whip. Reaching with my left hand, pulling and turning, pushing to the side, turning a bit more, pulling with the right hand, pushing with the left, and then turning back, sending the hook out, step around, reach forwards with your left hand, pull yourself forwards, and then push as you send your body backwards. Let's try again. So I turn to extend my left hand and now pull with my left hand and effectively pushing with my right, but it's roll back, so attacking with my elbow. Pushing here, that extends. I pull with that hand and then I push here, but that becomes the press. And now I pull with my left hand, push with my right as I go into the back foot, pull with my right hand, push with my left as I come into the front foot. That is just push. And then reaching forwards to pull with the left, coming round, pushing with the right, reaching to this corner to pull, and then the left hand pushes, and then you just reverse it, and so the hook goes out. And again, this is like pull and push. It's like this hand is pulling something, and you're striking the person as you pull them in, and then sinking into the foot, and step, reach forwards with your left hand, pull them in, and now push them with the same hand. So you push them. Okay, let's finish. Let's just try. So the way we interspersed the session with sort of mind in Dan Chen, fist on Min Meng Dan Chen, really we should intersperse it with this as well. As my knee comes up, there's a ripple comes up my body to the top of my head. This is what I want the feeling of. There's a wave. Waves are flowing up and down. And then you can feel that sense of limber looseness that you need in order to allow the transmission of energy through your body. Now don't come out of the foot. As I bring this heel up like that, I'm actually coming into the foot. I'm actually moving in this direction. And then I move in this direction. So it's actually really difficult to lift the heel because you're actually getting heavier on that leg. And then it's really quite strong. You really feel something rippling up this solid side. It just means it's just a little bit unstable because you're sort of coming into the foot that doesn't have the heel. So you're always about to wobble off balance. But that's part of the fun. So it should feel playful. And then just let it quieten. So our stillness is always about to break into that. And just this sense of movement in the head all the time. You know, when you become so still that you're sort of double weighted, they just sort of keep, the tail is swinging, and so is the head.